and when you're ready.
Good afternoon. Today, excuse me, is August 26, 2024. It is about 6:17 p.m. This is a meeting of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee. To my left is Councilman Jeffrey Schilling, and I'm Bobby Phillips, the chair. Mrs. Westfall could not be with us this evening. We're here for staff presentation on a request for additional authorization for our 2024 paving program. And seeing the only staff member here, Mr. Titterington, well, except for Charlotte, sorry.
Sure. So back in February, the council authorized us to bid out the annual local road repaving program, budgeted at $1.5 million, not to exceed. We went out to bid on with a list of streets and lane miles, as we do every year, knowing that, you know, we'll get as close to the 1.5 million as we can. We hope to do up to 34 or 35 sections of different roads. And when all was said and done, with the way the bids came out, the award was just a little under $1,490,000. 13.6 lane miles, and we ended up doing sections of 31 streets, not the 34 or 35 as I mentioned earlier. When all was said and done, like we do, like every construction project with asphalt, it's all based on the amount of cubic yards that are poured and paved and rolled. And so when they tallied up the final amounts that were done based on the unit prices that were quoted, it did exceed by $18,656 the authorization of the council. And there are various reasons for that based on which road. Maybe it was a little wider in one section. We had to go a little deeper. We had to fix a little base that we didn't think we would have to do. Or there were other miscellaneous repairs that we might have had to do. I think in one case, we had a couple of risers that we had to add to them to make sure that the valve box or the lids were flush and not creating artificial potholes. So things like that. And so this is the 1 year. I'm not remembering any other time that we've had to come back to the council, but this was a little challenging. We were a little surprised by the overage, but it was verified because we do have staff that goes and watches everything and fly specs all of the tickets.
Thank you. No, I don't have any particular comments or questions on this, except for the folks that did all of the paving. I did hear back from a couple of citizens in particular neighborhoods that they were exceedingly pleased with cleanliness, speed, friendliness of actually the employees doing the physical work during that hot spell of weather and stuff. So they did an outstanding job, which included the streets in front of my house and stuff. So it was outstanding. And $18,000 at the price of asphalt I'm surprised it's actually that low. So.
And we do have an outstanding bill, so we are asking for consideration of the emergency legislation so we can get that paid.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Schilling?
No.
Any other council folks or anyone in the audience that has any questions on this item? Please come on up. Mr. Henriksen, please come on up and state your name and address for the vast crowd of people.
Hello, everyone. I'm Steve Henriksen at 975 Dickerson. I understand things happen. However, the contract was for $1,490,000. It wasn't for $1,500,000. So this is another example of a not to exceed project that always seems to exceed. Seems to me, councilman, if you're going to have a not to exceed thing, you ought to have some guts and say, no, it's not to exceed. Now, the contractor knew a hell of a lot before, you know, he overspent it, that he was going to overspend it, unless somebody in this building said, oh, go ahead, I'll convince council to up it. So I don't know what the contract said. I don't know if it was a not to exceed contract or it was a fixed price, but the contractor had the ability to go out and look before he bid and everything else. And I understand the prices go up and so on, but that's the risk he takes before he signs the contract, unless he was impaired or drunk or something else. But I'm assuming he had a lawyer or somebody else look at it. So you guys can go ahead and approve it, but this is another example of a not-to-exceed contract that always seems to get exceeded. So take your chance, do whatever you want, but I understand it's a little, not very much money, but it's just another blankety-blank example of a not-to-exceed contract. Council looks at it, has a not-to-exceed, and we might as well not even write it down in paper. So I don't know if these are handshake contracts. We say, oh, don't worry about it. I bet every contractor in Miami County knows, oh, don't go to Troy. If it goes over, we'll get more money. We'll just roll over and approve anything. And I understand the prices go up, prices go down. If the prices had gone down, we have gotten a refund? What, are you kidding me? Anyway, I don't have anything else to say.
Mr. Chair, so the whole concept or scenario that Mr. Hendrickson is mentioning is not correct. The contract was not a fixed price contract overall.
Was it a not to exceed?
The council did not authorize a not to exceed contract. They authorized a not to exceed budget number that I was allowed to sign. The contract, the fixed amount of the contract was, as I mentioned earlier in my presentation, unit prices. And so per unit or per cubic yard was one, per riser for different sizes. If there were valves involved, or if there was extra base that needed to be done, whatever the service was, it was a unit price contract. And so when the actual amount of asphalt was poured, when the actual number of risers had to be used because of the elevation and because of the way that the street was originally laid out, because this was typically an overlay, a grind down and an overlay, that's when the quantities were finally calculated. As I mentioned, because there was extra asphalt that had to be poured, and there were tickets that backed all that up, times the unit price, which did not change because of inflation. That was all signed and agreed to. It was the amount of asphalt that was actually used that changed the overall price of the contract and caused this particular project to go over by $18,000. It does not happen that often. Every once in a while it does. It's been unfortunate this time because of inflation, but inflation was known at the time of signing the contract, and the unit prices of the asphalt were agreed to, and the contractor honored those prices. Again, it was just the quantity of the materials that were used.
So anyway, if they had gotten off by 30 or 40%, it's in the contract, it's unit pricing, and there's no cap on that. Regardless of whether council approved it or not, it could have been over by $300,000 based on unit pricing, right? There's nothing in the contract that says this is the end of it. We're not paying any more than this as long as you use the unit pricing.
The idea that between the contractor and his bidding and the staff that we would be off by $300,000 is.
I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah.
We're only off by a little bit.
It's an extreme example. The other thing that I was going to mention based on your comments was that, yes, if the quantities would have come back less than the $1,489,000, we would have gotten credit for that. We would not have written them a check for $1,489,000. The quantities are the quantities, and the calculations would have been the calculations. And that also has happened before. We don't report it to you because it's under the authorization, so we're not coming back and asking. That's why you rarely see us come back for increased authorizations.
Well, we have at times saved
At times.
money. That, yes, it does happen, yes.
You ought to publicize it and brag about it. That'd be it.
Any other questions or comments from the audience? Seeing none, Mr. Schilling.
I assume we move forward like this.
All right, very good, and there
No
is...
emergency on this?
There is no emergency
No emergency.
Yes.
contact.
Yes, there is. This is the...
Yes, sir.
Oh, consideration, okay, this is the last sentence, sorry.
Right.
So, it's the last sentence.
Move forward.
Okay. It is unanimous with the committee that, unanimously to move forward as staff is requesting. Any other items to come before the streets and sidewalks?
No, sir.
Then we are adjourned. Thank